Hello there, Shakespeare students. This is your professor here to give you your final lecture on your final course reading. Welcome. I congratulate you, I should say, on making it to the end of the course readings. And I chose The Tempest. It's somewhat less heavy than Richard III and Othello, and something lighter to end the semester with. It is a romance. The piece is a romance. So this piece would have more in common. You'll see connections with Much Ado About Nothing in terms of just general lively banter, but we're purely in the way that I would frame a romance in Shakespeare's work. It would include Midsummer Night's Dream, which I think some of you have read. It would be purely in the realm of fantasy. The play would have fantastic elements. The play would have creatures, disguises. Midsummer's Night's Dream, people switch identities, masks, that kind of thing. So we know we're in the realm of the romance, because not only do we have the Miranda Ferdinand love plot within The Tempest, but we also have characters who control others through magic. Prospero with his magic, Ariel is kind of a fairy figure, for lack of a better term, and we're not supposed to take them as literal characters like we do in Othello or something like that. So it's the fourth genre. It's the one I wanted to show you to end with, and I want us to be anticipating your forthcoming essay, and that will be either on you're talking about the concept of magic. I'm presuming that some of you might choose that option. Magic is used for power in The Tempest, and Ariel's first words, some of her first words are, "You promised me, master, to relieve me of my burden, my sorry, I can't talk today, my conscription to you, or my duty, that is to Prospero." So there's a sense that magic is not only the fairy dust that we see in Midsummer's Night's Dream, but a controlling feature used for power, usually used for male power. And we certainly see Caliban, Ariel, Prospero, even Miranda seems to be kind of enthralled to Prospero, her father, for lack of a better term, through his recourse to magic. And he has that magic garment that he puts on, and it's kind of a ruler of this island. So if you want to think of this piece as kind of a metaphor maybe for a god, Christian, pagan, otherwise a megalomaniac god at that, maybe that would be an apt reading of it in issues of power and control. We could also read it as subjects, right? Actual political subjects. Miranda would be a political subject of Prospero, as would Caliban, as would Ariel, and how much does one have to give back to their English king, if we're using that as a correct analogy. I'm not quite sure, but there is something going on with magic ruling power and subjugation in this play. I'd also give you a reading that's not original to me, but one of the reasons I assigned this play to you. So The Tempest is one of Shakespeare's final plays. We think he wrote it somewhere in the 1610, 1611. It was one of his last ones. And by that time, what is now North America and South America had their early explorations, right? Columbus had gone, Vespucci had gone, others, and Shakespeare was aware of that. So what if this island that we're on is based upon North America, the Caribbean? And what if Caliban, and this is one reading of the Caliban story, is a Native American? The reason that people support it is because the geographic location of where this island conveniently shipwrecked, right? And it's very, very convenient, isn't it? That Prospero's brother Alonso, the Duke of Naples, is now shipwrecked on the island. Don't follow plot with Shakespeare, by the way. Shakespeare he has convenient things happen. Hamlet escapes when he has letters that are supposed to tell the king of Norway, yes, to kill him. The plot is not Shakespeare's forte in some respects. So again, that these family members are there on this deserted island. Supposedly Prospero had control of the storm. He did. He mentions that at the very beginning. But it's very fanciful, and that connects with the romance element. But my point, if we're in I think it's Act 2, Scene 2, or maybe Scene 3, when Caliban, who is depicted as kind of a monster figure, who is the only inhabitant of the island before Prospero and Miranda were originally shipwreck there, right? So originally landed there. Um, he's given a drink by Ferdinand. Excuse me. He's given a drink by Sebastian, and in this respect, he basically um, it is analogized as someone being given a drink like the Native Americans were given liquor and given other things by the Europeans who eventually enslaved them. So that's one reading that some Shakespeare scholars, you don't have to agree with that, have of that scene as he slowly figure out, what god do I worship? I'll worship this god, I'll worship that god. And you certainly see Trinculo in there. Notice that Shakespeare has a lot of jesters. Has a lot of funny, humorous individuals. Think of Caliban as maybe being prefigured as a Native American, and that the island we're on might be the Caribbean or somewhere in North America, and Shakespeare's using his fanciful depictions of what that world might be like. Again, you don't have to go by that reading. But one of the things that we'll immediately note in this play, in this reading, is that it's much like Much Ado About Nothing with Don Pedro and Don John, and somewhat in Richard the Third with his brother and family members whom he kills, many of whom. There's a fraternal or paternal element to the story, right? What I mean is that there's usually some type of fratricide, some brothers that are in conflict with one another. Here it's Alonso and Prospero. Prospero feels slighted. If you heard his opening monologue to Miranda, if you read that, and by the way, you only need to read the first 2 acts for this week, and that's what I'd like you to use for your essay would be the first 2 acts. It's basic. The thing that he says in his monologue is that he was the rightful heir to Naples, and that he was basically usurped from the throne, cast aside in the middle of the night, took Miranda with him, and landed on this island. So revenge will be at the forefront of his mind. We hope by the end he has a little bit of mercy, and he has a little bit of kindness, and it's a romance. So we know we're not going to get the bloodshed that we got at the end of Othello by the time we get to the 5th act. So Prospero's power doesn't have limitations. I can't help but wonder whether this Shakespeare thinking about monarchical power and its limitations in some respects. Hopefully the advent of democracy, something thereafter. But the idea would be this is his island. He's in control of it. There are people subjugated under his control, and that would be Ariel. And going back to the fraternal question, many of the problems between warring factions, doesn't have to be male, but certainly we see that with the Montagues and Capulets in Romeo and Juliet, a marriage would usually fix the problem. So we have the dashing young Ferdinand, Alonso's son, whom Alonso thinks died in the shipwreck on Prospero's island, immediately falling in love with Miranda and vice versa. Right? There's no courtship or anything like that. It's a instantaneous love. We get some of these loves in Shakespeare, right? Romeo and Juliet fall in love immediately. So that love relation, that love portrayal is consistent in terms of how that happens. But that might be our window into conciliation between the 2 warring factions. And again, Alonso is unaware of that component when he lands the island. If you're trying to figure out who are all these figures, Shakespeare does this much backstory. If it's Gonzalo, if it's other ones like that, we know that it's people in Alonso's party. And if it's the island, we know it's Ariel, Caliban, Prospero, and Miranda. So you have lords and their attendants. Again, it gets confusing. Who's Trinculo? Trinculo's a jester. No wonder he's treated poorly. Unfortunately, that's the way jesters would be treated at that time. So I know you're gonna get a little lost on who's whom, and Shakespeare certainly doesn't give us much backstory. And there's lots of drinking, lots of carousing, and this should be a flight of fancy for you. It should not be one that you take as a literal story. Go with it. Go with the drunken elements of the tale. And notice the plots. I think the subplots of who's going to kill whom, who's going to take over whom, and there's this sense of usurping power or challenging power at the same time going on in this tale. But again, if I'm asking for you to focus on a couple things, it's the way power functions in the piece and the way that magic is a component of that power, and find those particular elements within it. B, that there should be a marriage subplot, and maybe unlike Romeo and Juliet, they can actually uh, be married by their families and actually have a official wedding and all of that. That would bring the warring factions together. C, that one dominant reading, and I love this play. I think it's a great play in terms of its fantastic element, is that we're geographically in the Caribbean or North America or even South America, and these fantastic worlds are the ones of Shakespeare's imagination about that world, and that the natives, Caliban, would be Native American in that respect. But note the use of magic. It's going to be a deus ex machina. It's going to solve problems when there's a mutiny. Ariel can use some of her power to subvert it and make people forget. Remember how Midsummer's Night's Dream functions in that respect in the forest, and they don't remember, right? They don't remember all these things that occur. You'll see that element certainly going on in the Tempest. The rest of the acts after you finish for this week should be fairly streamlined. They'll move quickly, and I think you're going to really enjoy this play. I'll leave it at that. That's a cursory introduction to the Tempest. Good luck with your reading this week, and I will see you again. Bye.